Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our first week as we talk a little bit about the role of the budget manager. I hope that as you've engaged in the readings and as you've thought about the material, there's been a few things that have stood out to you. And what I want to do with this video in particular is just talk about some of the highlights from this week in just a couple of minutes. So, the textbook that we have this week, the Barr and McLennan book, really defines the role of the budget manager. And it kind of gives us a sense of first understanding what the context of higher ed is before we start thinking about how we engage with the finances. So the first thing we need to know is there's just increased competition for funds, right? We need to understand that as a budget manager and as a leader in higher ed, the money is continually being pulled in multiple directions, right? One of the biggest is healthcare, and we'll have a chance to read an article about that this over the course of the semester, where states are being forced to kind of spend more money on healthcare, which is reducing funds to higher ed. There's also an increased regulation and unfunded mandates for higher education. This has changed recently, but there was a number of programs that higher ed was forced to kind of take on, but usually without money that would be used to support that. And then, of course, the pressure to reduce or cut costs with people saying, is higher ed worth it? Is it worth us doing it? And then, of course, as the economy ebbs and flows, that also puts a little bit of pressure on individuals that are pushed to think about it. And so, as you think about this, thinking about kind of the hardest thing for financial leaders to deal with, thinking about what you've seen at work, and maybe having a little bit of grace for the person that is, kind of running the finances for your institution. So, as that manager of funds, right, thinking about this for a moment about, how the economy kind of impacts state and local governments, how that impacts students, which in turn is kind of that tuition and scholarship relationship between students and institutions, meaning that we may have a tuition rate, but that's often not what students pay, right? We call that kind of sticker price versus the actual cost of higher ed. And scholarships kind of reduce the amount of money that students actually pay in tuition. So the idea here is that this is a pretty complex set of ideas for funding of higher education in general. And I love this quote from this week's readings where it says, budgets and financial matters never seem to be topics that stir the souls of program managers and department head. However, mastering skills involved in budget management and understanding the budgetary processes are essential for the success. So we've got to do this, right? The role of the budget manager is so critical. And so we have to develop the skills to be able to do it, whether we have a small budget or a big one. And so some of the main things that the budget manager takes on, right? Sound fiduciary decision making. We're going to make good choices with money. We're going to listen. We're going to gather resources. We're going to develop relationships and we're going to figure out how to solve problems, right? These are things that as the budget manager, you should really spend time thinking about. One of the other readings that we covered this week was that Murphy and Katsinas article talking about budgeting in community colleges. One of the reasons I had you do this is I just think it's really important to start thinking about how do we create a budget. And we're going to talk a lot about this over the course of a semester. This goals and values should be critical. The projections of how much we think we're going to get, how much we think we're going to spend, and then also giving time for units and individuals to make requests. There's a lot of things that we can do for that. We need to also understand our cost allocation, which really, is one of the reasons I share. I have you read the Goldstein chapter as well, which is available to you online. Because I want you to think about the budget process, right? How do we create a budget? And in this, the chapter talks a little bit about how we would not need budgets if we had unlimited resources. We would not need budget managers if we all agreed on the goals. So your job is to kind of bring people together. Budgets are used as control and motivation. They're often political. It's a process to create this. They can be complex. And we also need to think about the different aspects of a budget. And so, again, this week was just all about giving you a little bit of a foundation to think about how should I consider what it means to have a budget and to engage with this. So, again, I hope that you enjoyed the opportunity to dig into this a little bit, and I look forward to engaging with you in the platform. Thanks, everybody.